Hey everyone, Brad here from Heavy Diesel Softworks, and today I'm going to continue with our AKM tutorial series by creating a physical magazine firearm and setting up some of the variables. And we're also going to use this tutorial to sort of go over some of the variables and stuff found and talk a little bit about some of the variables found in physical magazine firearms. So let's go ahead and go into our blueprints. And we're going to select weapons, and we're actually going to be creating a let's create a folder. Call this new folder the AKM. This is a new weapon, and we're going to create a new blueprint class. A physical magazine firearm. I'm going to select that. And we're going to call this the BP AKM. And it's got some default stuff in here. As you can see, it's got a shotgun, mesh, and the bolt group is, or sorry, the slide group is set to the pump of the shotgun. We're going to replace these with our own skeletal meshes from the AKM. So for the skeletal mesh, let's go to the AKM, and we're going to grab the body. You'll see that this slide is attached where the actual slide of the AKM should be. So we're going to go ahead and select this slide group right here as the AKM bolt carrier group. If you look at it, that is now in the correct position. Now we need to come in here and do a couple of sorry, what am I trying to say? Trigger areas and get them in the right positions. We'll start with a mag load volume. This is the volume that's going to decide if you're wanting to load a mag into the weapon. It is decided by, if we go down to our sockets, here we are. It is decided by the mag load socket. So let's go ahead and get it in the right position and shape. Obviously, you're not going to be able to move this around up and down with the like that. You can rotate it, or actually you can't rotate it either. That's because it takes its rotation and position values from the actual socket. So if you're needing to actually move the location or anything like that, you need to go ahead and do that in by moving your socket around. But you can change its scale, which is what I'm doing right here. Because we've already got it in sort of the position we want it to be. We just want to change its scale so it fits right inside the gun like that. Now we have a stabilization volume. Go ahead and make it visible. Oh, it is visible. Just needs to be bigger. As you notice, it is attached to the handle right now. So let's fix that. So if we open up the skeletal mesh for the AKM body, I'm going to put this right here. Go into the skeleton. Let's see, did we add a stabilization socket? We did not. And that is why Alright. We need to add a stabilization socket to this so it knows where to go. You could use the offhand socket. In fact, let's go ahead and do that so we can keep it a little bit cleaner instead of having two different sockets. Well, you know what? Now let's make another socket and just put it in the same position. So we're going to create a socket, add a socket, call it the stabilization socket. We're going to move it up here. In fact, you can go ahead and copy the positions from the offhand socket for now. And there obviously going to be times where you're going to want these two sockets maybe to be slightly different, which is why I'm not just using one for the other. But that puts them both in the same area. Go ahead and save this on the skeleton. And if we look back at our gun here, you'll notice that our stabilization socket has moved. And one thing I need to say is if you name these sockets something different than what they are in the socket list right here, you're going to have to change them in this socket list. So if instead we called it a stabilized socket, you would have to change this right here to stabilized socket. So let's size this stabilization volume. This is the area where if your hand is in this area, you can press the grip and stabilize. Oh, one thing we forgot to do. Oh, no, we didn't. We haven't gotten there yet. So let's go ahead and make this fairly big. There we go. That'll be good. Now we'll move on to the slide grab volume. Now, this is slide grab, or in this case, charging handle grab. And this is where if you want to actually grab the charging handle or the slide and pull on it. And so we're going to need to make this literally just this little handle right here. So the player has to actually pull or interact by pushing the trigger while overlapping this handle, and then you'll be able to pull back on the slide. You don't want it too big because you don't want them to be able to do it from the wrong side or what have you. Alright. The bullet is inside there in the correct spot. Obviously the bullet is not the correct mesh. Oh, you also notice that I went ahead and brought in the textures for this. And just used a basic PBR material. If y'all need me to do a video on that, I will. This example didn't come with a texture for the actual bullet, so it's gonna look like a little weird. So if you see it, it'll actually just be black, completely black, with some weird, because I'm just using the AKM texture for it right now. I'll add a bullet texture if I can find one or what have you. But we currently don't have a, we're going to be bringing out a whole, like, 9mm 45 308, which is also 7.62 by 5.9. I think I said that right. Yeah, I think that's right. And 5.56, we're going to be giving y'all, like, some premium, like, boxes for ammo and just ammo stuff. It's going to come for free with Weapon Master in 1.1. So it's not, this being Chamfer Zone's 308 or 7.62 by, actually, no, this would be 7.62 by 3.9, I believe, which is the smaller cartridge for the AK. Anyways, I'm rambling and it's not important. But anyways, the bullet should be in the position that we wanted it to be. One thing we do have to do is we need to know the bullet bones name, or sorry, the bullet bones name and the shell bones name. If we go into our meshes and we look at our AKM bullet from before, actually no, I don't want to open that. I want to open the skeleton. you'll see that there actually is, the meshes themselves have bone names. Um, they aren't really bone names, they're the mesh names. And this is what we want to name our, um, in the character. Here, I'll show you real fast. I'm dragging this off. I'm dragging this into another screen so I can actually read it off. But if we look in the BPA cam, we go up to the top, you'll notice there's a shell bone name and a bullet bone name here. This is so that we can hide and show the shell and the bullet at the proper time. For example, when you fire the bullet is going to hide itself inside the gun. And when the shell is ejected, it's going to hide itself. The shell is going to hide itself. And then when another bullet is added into the chamber, both the shell and the bullet are going to not hide themselves anymore. So that's how we show and hide, the bullet in the actual gun. So here we have this is called the shell bone name is called WPN 7 WPN-7 62 39 X39 shell. So yes, this is a 7.62 by 3.9, which is a Russian version of something that's a little bit bigger than the 5.56. And it's sort of in between the 5.56 and the 308. If you don't know, a 308 and a 7.62 by 5.9 are the same caliber. Sort of like the 223 and the 5.56 are technically the same caliber. There's a couple small differences, but in general, if you buy a 5.56 gun, you can fire 223 bullets. But if you buy a 223 gun, you can't fire 5.56 bullets. 5.56 and 7.62 by 3 or 5.9 are the NATO calibers, where the consumer calibers are 308 and 223. Sorry, that's some random bullet, hopefully correct knowledge. I mean, between Colin and I, Colin is our 3D modeler. We have quite a few guns and know quite a bit about firearms, so rest assured we are going to try and get everything we can as correct as possible. We aren't like gun noobs that are just kind of doing this, without kind of knowing where it needs to be coming from. Which is why there's some issues with the physical magazine firearms that y'all might not even realize are issues, that the things that we want to fix in 1.1 so that they're even more realistic. Mainly with the recoil, which nobody said anything about, but the recoil needs to change some. Anyways, I'm getting way off track. Let's get back to this. Okay, so we've named the shell bone name, the correct shell bone name. Obviously, it's coming from the actual thing I have over here, which is the actual bone for the shell, for the bullet. Or, sorry, the actual skeletal mesh for the bullet that has the two meshes on it. If you have something that, like if your bullet doesn't have these two split, I would just go with the shell. Name everything the shell. That's actually what we do with our shotgun bullet, because it's only a shotgun bullet. We don't have a bullet that comes out. It just remains the shell. So it just gets hidden, and then it ejects the shell. So because the actual bullet isn't necessary, it's just kind of cool for people who want it to be completely real. Let's move on. So we've added the bullet. We have a scope attached volume. We actually don't have a scope for this gun. There's no scope attached, so we're not really going to worry about that one. If there was, you would be moving this volume to where it needs to be using a socket. Side attached volume. This we do have. So we need to go ahead and add this, make it visible so we can get it the right size. Now when we overlap correctly with this, we'll be attaching that, side attachment. but that needs to stay invisible. But it's in the right spot. Iron sight, same thing. We don't need it. Offhand mesh. We need to go ahead and add the offhand mesh. And actually, it's already added. Let's just make it visible so we can kind of see what's going on. As you can see, it needs to be adjusted. We'll get to that in just a minute. The spotlight, this is actually the muzzle flash, and in 1.1 this will be labeled as the muzzle flash. It is a spotlight that does not cast shadows, or it shouldn't. Maybe it does. Anyways. If I have it casting shadows, then that'll not be casting shadows in the near future. Oh, yeah, see, no cast shadows. There we go. Yeah, it just has that brief burst of light that kind of lights up the area when you fire. And it just gets turned on and off with every shot. Instead of spawning something, I like having things just be turned on and off so we don't have to deal with garbage collection. Okay, that's good setting up. We should be good having set up the actual hierarchy here. Let's start talking about setting up the actual weapon itself. So, going down our list here, we have spawn with mag. We're gonna close the actor tick. When you have a gun that's a pickup, you can have it spawn with a mag already in it. It won't show on the ground. Actually, it will show on the ground if it's spawned dynamically in the world. Because the second this gets built in the world, it's gonna have a mag attached to it. Example of this are the guns in the survival level. They all spawn with a mag inside them already. Use starting sight attachment. If you want it to start with the sight attachment, you need to have this selected, and you need to select the actual sight attachment you want. Again, this is all spawn settings, so this is all initial stuff, like when it gets spawned in the world. Use starting iron sight, same thing. We aren't going to be using that at all, so we're going to go ahead and leave this unchecked. And the same with the scope attachment. I'll be going over a weapon that has both scopes and iron sights later, another tutorial. In fact, every weapon I do for Weapon Master is going to have its own tutorial. So we'll have lots of different tutorials to go through. I'm not going to go back and do tutorials for the weapons that have already been added, but I will be doing a tutorial for the MP5, for the bolt action rifle, and for the basic weapon that's coming, and any other weapon that comes after that. Because that'll cover most of the different types of weapons available along that are to make with the system. Anyways, the bolt action type, this is gonna change. This actual nomenclature is gonna change soon, so it's not so confusing. But right now it's an auto, whereas a manual would be something like a pump shotgun or like a bolt action rifle. And auto, this is just meaning it's gonna change to loading type. Is it a auto loader or is it a manual loader? So we get away from this bolt action word right here that seems to confuse people. Is this a reciprocating bolt? Yes, it is. As I've mentioned before, reciprocating just means that the charging handle and the bolt will both move when the weapon is fired. So on an AK, when the weapon is fired, this charging handle moves with the bolt. It's basically welded onto the bolt. They do not move separately. In the Tavor example that comes with Weapon Master, that's a non-reciprocating weapon. When it fires, the charging handle, which is up here on this part of the gun, does not move. It's on a separate spring. So anytime the bolt moves, the charging handle will move on this weapon on an AK. Use use last shot bolt lock. Okay, this nomenclature may change as well because it may be kind of confusing. Hopefully it's not. But basically, on the last shot fired, a lot of modern weapons will lock the bolt back. And it's not actually the gun that does it, it's the magazine. There's a little lip on the magazine that catches the bolt if there's no actual bullet in the magazine anymore, and it locks it back. With AKs, this does not happen. So we do not have a last shot bolt lock with the AKM. Fire state. This is your default fire state. Generally, it's the same one you're gonna want to have as your first in your array here. So we are gonna be using a select fire with this. I could be wrong. The AKM may not have select fire, but I do believe when you move this thing right here, there's a couple positions, as you can see right there, which are semi-fire or semi-auto and full auto and safety. But we don't have safety currently in. If y'all really want to add me to add safety, I can. I think it just kind of gets in the way. And we don't really have to worry about being safe in video games. But if you are a shooter in real life, you should always be cognizant of the safety. We are going to start with the weapon being semi, and then actually we aren't going to do a burst, so I'm going to remove one of these. Start with semi, and then the other, it's going to be auto, so it's going to be semi and auto for this. And if you want select fire to work, which select fire is being able to switch between semi and full auto, you have to have this use select fire checked. The number of shots to fire, 1. If this was a shotgun, you would increase this. If you're making a Borderlands game, you could have, you know, assault rifles firing 2 bullets at once. And it will fire 2 individual bullets at the same time. So max burst count. This is for burst. We aren't having a burst on this weapon, but I'll go ahead and explain it. The maximum number of bursts per time you pull the trigger is essentially what it is. So if you pull the trigger, you're going to get 3 bullets before you're able to pull the trigger again. All 3 have to fire before to pull the trigger again. Does it have infinite ammo? No. We're going to use a magazine for it, and this isn't if you're making an arcadey type game, you could use this. This is mostly for testing, but we're just going to leave it empty for right now. Are we using an internal magazine? No, we are not. This is going to use an external magazine. If this was a shotgun or a bolt-action rifle or some kind of strange assault rifle with an internal magazine, you could do that. Internal just means that the bullets are fed in and there's a magazine on the inside. Fire rate curve, we're going to leave that for later. This is actually what handles the speed at which the weapon can fire. We actually use a curve for that using some math, so it's accurate. Do we have infinite ammo? Oh wait, I've already done that. No, I just forgot to cover fire rate curve. I'm stupid. Anyway, sorry. So we've covered fire rate curve, infinite ammo, and use internal mag. Magazine type, again, we're going to be coming back to this. Projectile type, we're going to be coming back to this when we make a projectile. Bullet class, same. Shell class, same. All this stuff is just setting up the different things it's going to fire. So we're going to be, in future videos, we're going to be setting up a magazine, setting up a projectile, setting up a bullet, which the bullet is just a physical object that gets spawned. It's not the projectile that gets spawned. Projectile type is what gets spawned at the end of the gun. And we have 2 projectile types that come with Weapon Master. One is a physical projectile, like an arrow, or in the shotgun case, it does fire some pellets. Or you can also fire a projectile that is a hit scan projectile, which may sound kind of weird to everyone that I'm spawning something and then doing a hit scan or a line trace from that. But the reason for that, and I've been asked this, and I can clarify this now to everyone. The reason for that is I wanted to make it where all of these weapons, you could use them with third-party projectile systems. Simple. You just bypass our system altogether, and instead of spawning one of our bullets, you spawn a third-party bullet, so that, you know, we can support any from realistic blueprint weapons to any of the other weapons out there, as long as you spawn it with the right variables and add that in there yourself. And we'll talk about this more in a second. You will be able to not use our system at all. If it was hardwired in to be like a projectile weapon or a hit scan weapon, then you wouldn't have that ability without doing some massive changes to the code. So this is just my way of thinking ahead of time for people wanting to do their own bullet logic and stuff like that. So we will move on down. So the bullet class is the bullet that can be ejected. The shell class is the shell that can be ejected. Muzzle flash is a muzzle flash. It is an array, so if you have multiples in here, it will select it'll select one at random. We only have one muzzle flash effect that we've made for y'all, so I'm just going to select that. Smoke effects, I actually think I have this disabled right now for performance reasons. We originally had a smoke effect when you fired that went up, but we're still trying to nail down performance, and we'll probably add that back in for y'all. But it's generally there a small smoke effect that can be that'll show up when you fire the weapon. I'm probably going to be expanding that into an in some way in the future. Distance. This is something that is going to be changing in 1.1. I have it distance is part of the weapons right now, but they're actually going to be, and it gets past. So distance is how far the hit scan can go. But since not all bullets are hit scan, it doesn't make sense for me to keep distance on the weapon, since I already have damage and critical stuff like that on the actual bullet themselves. And if you want to understand my philosophy here, coming as someone who's a shooter that uses guns in the real world, the gun is something that spawns the bullet. The barrel is something, the barrel of the gun, like, not spawns the bullet, it fires the bullet. The barrel of the gun gives the bullet its spin, its speed, its trajectory, and accuracy. The bullet itself does the damage. The bullet itself handles that part of it. So the gun is just in Weapon Master, and especially with this physical magazine weapons or physical magazine firearms, and when we get to breech loaders and other stuff like that, the gun is just going to be the gun part. It's not going to do the damage. So we've sort of divorced the gun stats, which stats are coming in 1.1. The gun stats are going to be things like recoil, the actual accuracy of it, weight is going to play a factor because it's going to all work in how recoil works, along with stability and stuff like that. That's going to be like the stats for a weapon, because in the real world that is the stats for the weapon. And like the speed of it, different barrel lengths can give you different speeds. It's kind of a myth that people think a longer barrel makes a gun more accurate. It doesn't. It just makes the bullet go faster. So, I mean, stuff like that is going to be like the stats for the gun. Whereas the bullet, when given the speed coming out of a gun, is going to decide your damage and the type of bullet and whatnot. So that's how we're going to kind of divorce. This distance is going to be put on the hit scan bullet and removed from the gun. It's just a long way of saying that, kind of explaining my thought process on how all this works. So just know that in 1.1, distance, which is how far a hit scan or a line trace bullet can go, is going to be moved to the actual hit scan bullet instead of being on the gun. So don't be surprised when that happens. Shell eject force. This is the force at which a shell is ejected from the gun. This is both bullet and shell. Bullet lifespan. This is another thing that is going to be going to just the actual bullet itself instead of like distance, instead of being handled by the gun. I'm going to go ahead for distance and put 10,000 on here. We are going to be using hit scan with this AKM. And I'm going to put the lifespan of the bullet at 0.5, and that's actually a long time for it to be alive, because when that bullet gets spawned, it gets spawned right at the end of this barrel and then immediately fires a line trace. And then you don't really need it anymore. It does the trace instantly, and then it just needs to be deleted. if you have a projectile, like if you're firing an arrow or a grenade or what have you, you want to set your bullet lifespan longer. Again, in 1.1, these are both moving from the gun and going to the uh, bullets themselves. Force feedback effect, just ignore that from now. That's something that's going to be gone for 1.1. We've changed our force feedback system. We have all of our sockets here. These generally should be set up correctly. The only difference is if your gun is a non-reciprocating gun, you need to have a bolt attached socket and the side attached socket. And I can show you what I mean by this by opening up the assault rifle, and we scroll down, and you can see that we have a bolt attached socket and a side socket. Or slide socket. Can't talk. Side socket. I don't know why I'm looking at side socket. I'm confusing myself. There's slide attached socket right there. I can be kind of a moron sometimes, sorry. All these are just the sockets. These don't need to be changed unless you've changed your skeletal names like I mentioned before, and then they need to match with whatever the skeletal name with, so the different parts of the gun will fire correctly. And if you need to know, like you made this muzzle socket specifically over here, and that's where that's how the gun knows it's going to go from the socket. That's how that it needs to fire from the muzzle socket, that it needs to eject a bullet from the shell eject socket, and where the offhand needs to go, and all that kind of stuff. Do not touch stuff is just stuff, again, that it's internal stuff. A lot of this is going to change. I'm going to a much cleaner method of handling the bolt mechanism of actually interacting with the slide in 1.1, and I think y'all are going to like it. Internal ammo, there is no internal magazine. If this was a shotgun, this is where you would set your, this is the actual current internal ammo that I can speak. Current internal ammo, and the max internal ammo, like its max magazine size. Weapon accuracy. So, bloom is a term that was used in Halo, and it's generally just because of how the crosshairs worked in Halo. There was a circle and it got bigger when you fired or what have you. That's why they called it sort of bloom, like a flower or whatever. But it's essentially, I call it bloom. I may change the name. A lot of people hate the name bloom. It's the accuracy of the weapon per shot. So we do want to have inaccuracy built into the weapon. We aren't going to have a per shot inaccuracy for this gun. If you were doing more of an arcade thing, or if a certain weapon actually does get more or less accurate per shot, you would do that here. But since we have actual recoil that we can use, we don't need to have that increase per shot of inaccuracy. So we're going to have a base spread of, we'll start at 0.1, and we'll move that down. Now, stabilized spread mod, this is the modifier of how much, when you stabilize the weapon with your forehand, it lessens the actual spread of the bullet. Another kind of arcadey thing. I leave it at 1. There's no reason why adding like a gun's accuracy is determined by the gun itself. It's not determined by the shooter. And I know that sounds weird, because a shooter's accuracy is determined by themselves. But if you put a gun on a table and you like ratchet it down and fire it over and over and over again, where it's not going to move at all no matter what the recoil is, like its base accuracy isn't going to be determined by whether or not someone's holding the front of the gun or not. So this is generally something for more arcadey stuff, like in case you want to have something like that happen. That's what that's for. Spread increase max. This is how, let's say you wanted it to increase at like 0.2 every time it's fired. Then you could set the maximum it could possibly get, so the maximum spread it could possibly get at 1, and it would stop at 1 and not get any worse. We're going to leave those at 0. And the reset time is how long between shots it takes for the bloom to reset. And it doesn't really matter what we put this as, because we aren't really using per shot inaccuracy. We are just having a base inaccuracy for every bullet fired, which is how guns work. Third-party variables, and again, stuff like accuracy, stabilization, recoil, all this stuff is going to be stats that are going to be affected by attachments in 1.1 when we add the stat system in. Use third-party projectile. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said that you could bypass our system and use your own projectile systems or somebody else's projectile system. You check this, and then you go into the actual blueprint. I'll show you right here. You go in the physical magazine firearm. Take a second to load it up. You go in the spawn bullet, and you'll see a nice handy little branch right here for you to add your logic right here to get rid of this return node. Well, actually, don't get rid of it. Just bring it down here, and then you can spawn, use third-party projectile. You can look at how your third-party projectile is supposed to be spawned. You can add all the stats to it right here and do everything you need to do for a third-party projectile. That just makes it really easy for you to come in here and do your own stuff and not even worry about spawning our projectiles or what have you. But let's see if we can keep going. We aren't going to be using that for this right now. I will be doing a tutorial on this soon. If y'all have a third-party projectile asset y'all want me to try, or not try, but to do a tutorial with, let me know and I'll purchase it, and we'll do that. Use stabilization volume. This means basically, do we want to allow stabilization at all? And yes, we do. Do we want to show the stabilization offhand mesh? This means when we're stabilized, do you want to show the mesh? Yes, we do. The held and offhand adjustment basically means when you are stabilized and you drop the weapon with your main hand, it attaches, at that point the weapon attaches to your left hand, but it's like a temporary attachment, I guess I would say. You can't, the only thing you can do with a gun when it's held in your offhand, like a two-handed gun, when it's held in your offhand is interact with the bolt or whatever, or drop it, or, you know, add a magazine, stuff like that. You can't like fire it or anything like that, or change any of its settings. So this just basically is a location adjustment so that it's not so jarring when you drop the gun with your main hand and it gets attached to your left hand. It doesn't like jump around on the screen. And generally you're going to be moving it up and down on the x-axis, which is the forward axis. Now we have the offhand left adjustment and offhand right adjustment. We'll be doing this later when we get into the adjustment phase in another video, when we're adjusting the actual position of this hand right here, so that in game it has the correct angle and it looks right on the gun. In the future, these are all going to have their own custom animations and stuff to look better once we actually get a rig for a hand going. So we'll get to that at another time. Use recoil. Self-explanatory. Do you want to use recoil? The actual vertical recoil is an X and a Y. This is not a coordinate-based system. It's just between these 2 points. The horizontal recoil is a coordinate system. So, well, actually, it is a coordinate system, but this is up and down. So X would be your lowest point, and Y would be your highest point. So always, so if the amount of recoil you want to be 0, see, guns don't recoil down, so this will never be a negative number. But if the amount of recoil is 0, and then you could even have 10, and it'll choose a random variable between 0 and 10 for your recoil. In the future, I do want to kind of get more advanced recoil logic in, but for right now, this works pretty good. But for this, we're going to say, this AKs have quite a bit of recoil. Let's go ahead and do something like 15 and 11, and we'll move from there. And with some horizontal recoil at like a negative, and see the horizontal recoil is negative to positives because it's going to go a little bit left, a little bit right. Let's do like 0.9, or actually no, let's do 0.1 or negative 0.1 to negative or to positive 0.1, and we'll see how that feels. Backwards recoil amount is how much the gun's going to be backwards every shot. Let's go ahead and put this at 1 for right now, and then we'll change that in the future once we do some testing. Recoil stabilization mod. This is okay. Let me say this right. How much stabilization will affect recoil? 0, it will completely get rid of recoil. 1, it will completely have recoil. It's only 0 to 1. So basically, this is how much stabilizing with your left hand removes recoil. I'm going to put it at actually no, I'm going to put it at 0.3 for right now. And you can adjust this. Recoil resistance is the speed at which the weapon recovers from recoil. So after a single shot, it will recoil at this speed. And I'm going to leave that at, I'm actually going to put that at 9 for right now. Alright, so okay, so now we have manual slide config, and we have the max slide distance. Now, this is how the maximum distance you want the slide to be able to move backwards. And we actually don't know that right now. We're gonna do. You need to test this in Engine to get it correct. We're gonna leave it at 12. The empty mod value is. This is kind of a weird variable name. It may be changing, and it's just the furthest position the slide can move forward when the empty mag is in and the slide is locked back. Okay, so let me explain that to you. When a gun has use last shot bolt lock, when the mag actually catches the bolt, an empty mag catches the bolt, there's actually a little play between all the way back and when it catches, so it kind of jitters. If you look at the pistol in Weapon Master and you empty a mag, you can kind of grab the slide, and as long as the mag is still in there, it jitters a little bit, like it moves a little bit forward, a little bit back. This is the how far forward it'll allow the slide to go if the magazine is empty. Since we don't have last shot lockback, this empty mod value is ignored. Max bolt distance. This is I put this in here because it technically should be identical to the max slide distance, but just in case for whatever reason your bolt pullback and your slide pullback don't match up, you can adjust the max bolt distance and slide distance separately. But that only works when you have a bolt and a slide group, so that only works with reciprocating weapons. Or weapons in which you have both a bolt and a slide, which is generally going to be your reciprocating weapons. Let's go back down. Weapon sounds. You have your fire sound. In the future, these are going to have an array so that you can do arrays with sounds. Right now they're just a single sound, but just to add some variation, and people are going to want to have variations in sounds. Even 2 gunshots actually don't sound completely identical. They can. This is also going to expand with both subsonic and supersonic silencer sounds, along with some others. But we'll do some. There are sounds that come with it, like the empty sound. Rifle click is the empty sound. If you wanted, I'm not really going to go over filling all these out. I will explain which each one of them is. Mag insert is putting a mag in. Mag eject is when a mag is ejected. Bolt release is when the bolt is all the way back, like on a pistol, when it's locked back, and you press the slide release button and it slides forward. Select fire is the sound of changing between the different fire modes. The bolt back start sound is the sound it makes when it first starts going back. The bolt back in sound is the sound it makes when it gets to the furthest back position. The bolt forward start sound is the sound it makes when it starts moving forward from the back position. The bolt forward in sound is the sound it makes when it gets back to the front right here. The bolt locked sound is the sound it makes when it gets locked back. Pickup sound is obviously pickup. Holster sound, holster and holster is the sound it makes when it holsters and unholsters. And the collide sound doesn't do anything right now, but in 1.1 it will be the sound of the gun colliding with the ground. So, weapon attachment setup. First of all, if you want to use attachments at all, you need to make sure can add and remove attachments is true. Actually, no. If you want to make sure, if you want to use have the ability to add and remove attachments, you need to make sure this is true. Otherwise, if you have like a game where you don't want them to be able to remove attachments, but you want to spawn attachments on there, make this false. Can use scope attachments if you're going to allow the player to use scope attachments. True here. We aren't going to be doing that with this gun, so that's false. Can use iron sight attachments. We aren't going to be doing that with this one, so we'll leave that false. We do want to use that one sight attachment, so we will let's set this to true. Alright. Let's move on to the last two categories here before we put an end to this video. Hand interaction intensity is part of the weapon rumble setup. This is just to add a little bit more, like I guess, feeling when the weapon is when you're actually interacting with the slide and everything with the weapon. This is the intensity of that. I'm gonna put it at I don't know. I'm gonna put it at 0.3 and give it a duration of 0.08. And this is just gonna be that that interaction with your, and this is gonna be on the hand that's interacting. So if you're right-handed and you're holding the weapon in your right hand and you turn it over and you're gonna rack the slide with your left hand, this will be your left hand that will be receiving the rumble. The weapon interaction intensity will be the right hand that is receiving the same rumble that is attached to the weapon. So we'll put those both at 0.3, 0.3. Weapon fire intensity is the actual when you fire the weapon, how much rumble you get. And right now it's just a basic rumble. In the future we're going to be trying to get to where we can get some custom like curves and whatnot for the rumble. But reload intensity is the actual, it's only rumbles on your weapon hand or main hand. But we're going to set this lower because it's really high. And 0.08. The object type is a magazine firearm. This is used in deciding like holster types and whatnot. The ammo type is a we're going to choose the 7.62x3.9. Even though we haven't made our ammo yet, our bullets yet, we're going to choose the 7.62x3.9. The grab holster setup, this is again something that you can do. This is where you make your changes if you need to position the gun in the hand differently with the location adjustment, if it's off a little bit or if it needs to be moved up. Generally, we spent a lot of time going through and making sure that we tried to get the trigger of the controller to match up with the trigger of the gun, so it felt like you were actually holding the gun. This is where you do that location adjustment. And the rotation adjustment, I'm actually going to zero that out, is how you fix any rotation problems with the weapon. Generally, this shouldn't be an issue, but every once in a while, your gun may come in with the wrong rotation, and you need to change its rotation to begin with. The holster location and rotation is just, it's going to be its rotation when it's in a holster, so that you can get it rotated correctly. Hide in game hand. What this means is when you grab a gun with your main hand, does it hide that hand, or does it keep showing that hand? That's what that means. Can holster, when you set this to true, because we want to be able to holster this gun. This will be a primary weapon, and we will be holstering it on our back, but we want to be able to holster it. Rendering, don't need to talk about that. Replication, nope. Input, nope. Actor, nope. And that pretty much covers everything for this tutorial. We will be coming back and talking about some of these other things when we, in the next tutorial, when we cover making a magazine, making the projectile, making the bullet, making the shell, and a couple other things, like maybe adding some of the sounds in and stuff like that. But until then, I will let you go and go ahead and compile and save your work, and I will catch you in the next tutorial. Thanks.